Intro visual, hyper-fast montage of hypercars racing past Burj Khalifa. Quick cut to a heavy brass grease cap shattering a luxury poolside lounger. Then smash cut to Black Sphex, drum hit, deep sub-bass drone underneath narrator on November 24th. 2025, a heavy post-tension grease cap sheared clean off the exterior of a brand new 66-story ultra-luxury tower in Dubai Marina. It plummeted hundreds of feet, smashing directly into a poolside cabana below. No body was sitting there. That wasn't engineering. That was pure, unadulterated luck. Welcome to the ultimate illusion of modern real estate. This wasn't a mid-tier development. This was the world's very first residential tower branded by a legendary British supercar manufacturer. A billion-dollar vertical palace where standard units sold for millions. And the triplex penthouse wore a staggering $59 million price tag. Buyers were promised private superyacht berths, an exclusive helicopter pad, and a lifestyle reserved for the global elite. Instead, within 2 years of handing over the keys, the dream is entirely fractured FX. Cut music of cracking glass-cracked structural concrete, exposed rusting rebar, glass balcony panels shattering into the desert heat without warning, and a marine seawall buckling under the pressure of the Arabian Gulf. Aggressive. Urgent beat kicks. The developer pocketed hundreds of millions during pre-sales, leveraging a world-famous automotive brand to sell an identity. But as the newly formed Owners Association just discovered, that British luxury brand isn't named on a single legal filing. The actual engineering and construction fell to a web of local contractors and a foreign billionaire backing family. Now, an explosive, independent forensic engineering report has classified the building as an immediate life safety hazard. This is the terrifying reality behind Dubai's most prestigious new address. A terrifying case study of what happens when the distance between a glossy marketing rendering and structural reality completely collapses. This is the story of a billion-dollar disaster, and the damage is spreading fast. Visual, satellite imagery zooming into a prime, empty waterfront plot in Dubai Marina, transitioning into rapid construction time-lapse footage of a massive tower rising SFX, ticking clock sound underneath a tense, driven electronic beat narrator. To understand how this disaster unfolded, you have to look at the dirt it sits on. This specific plot at the mouth of the marina was one of the last ultra-valuable stretches of waterfront real estate left in the district. For over a decade, it was a ghost site. Multiple developers launched ambitious master plans, only to watch them collapse during economic cycles. The land sat waiting, vulnerable to the shifting sands and tidal pressures of reclaimed coastal ground. That changed when a massive family-backed conglomerate from South America purchased the plot for an astronomical $125 million. Eager to plant their flag in the lucrative UAE market, they realized that standard luxury wouldn't cut it anymore in Dubai. They needed a hook. So they struck a deal with a legendary British supercar brand to create a vertical monument to automotive prestige. 66 stories, nearly 400 units, a rooftop helipad, and private yacht slips along the marina. By 2022, the hype machine was unstoppable. The developer reported 90% of the tower sold out, raking in over $100 million in the first 8 weeks of the year alone. Wealthy expatriates bought in, believing the prestige of the brand guaranteed flawless engineering. But look at the structural contract.sfx. Whoosh! Text on screen highlighting legal debauchers. The British carmaker's involvement was strictly limited to design aesthetics and branding rights. They didn't pour the concrete, they didn't fund the construction, and they didn't sign off on the engineering. That massive responsibility was handed over to a complex network of local contractors, architects, and structural engineers. XFX, low foreboding drone, in March 2025. The developer officially handed over control of the building's management board to the unit owners, a standard legal transition in the UAE. But the moment the new owner-controlled board took a look under the hood, they didn't find minor punch list items. They found a structural nightmare. The board hired a top-tier forensic engineering firm to audit the tower. The resulting report was an autopsy. Engineers documented extensive concrete spalling, unsealed gaps in the building's thermal envelope, and deep post-tension cable defects. The extreme desert heat was causing massive expansion stress, fracturing the concrete and exposing the inner steel tendons directly to the highly corrosive, salt-heavy marine air. SFX. Industrial metallic clang, a compromised post-tension cable 300 feet above the Arabian Gulf, isn't a cosmetic flaw. It is a ticking time bomb. The engineers didn't mince words. They flagged falling concrete as an immediate life safety risk. The luxury oasis was structurally degrading from the inside out. Visual split screen showing modern Dubai glass skyscrapers side by side with close-up engineering diagrams of failing concrete and corroded steel cables. SFX, drum hit, tense, pulsing synth cadence narrator. The structural rot uncovered by the forensic engineers wasn't isolated to a single floor. It penetrated virtually every critical system in the 66-story tower. But to fully appreciate the danger, you have to look at how this building was designed to interact with its environment. Dubai's coastline presents some of the most brutal engineering challenges on Earth. You have extreme ambient heat causing massive thermal expansion, shifting foundations on reclaimed marine soil, and a hypersaline atmosphere that eats through unprotected metal, according to the engineering report. The water management systems inside this elite tower failed entirely. The rooftop infinity pool, elite spas, and structural water features were improperly installed or poorly sealed. The result? Active, continuous leaks driving water deep into adjacent structural components, corroding the internal steel reinforcement. SFX, low underwater rumble. Even the building's specialized fire sprinkler system suffered from loose, low-grade joints, causing internal leaks that damaged the core infrastructure. Outside, the marine seawall along the marina was already showing severe cracking and advanced corrosion. Water was getting exactly where it shouldn't, accelerating the structural degradation of a building that wasn't even 2 years old. Faced with a mounting crisis and a clear life safety hazard, the newly formed Owners Association couldn't wait for a lengthy legal battle. They had to immediately levy massive, unexpected financial assessments on the individual owners just to pay for emergency stabilization work. Swipe. Legal Dingman on screen then, in April 2026, the hammer dropped. The Owners Association launched a massive construction defect lawsuit under local real estate laws. The defendants? The entire project directory, the developer's entity, the general contractor, the architects, and the structural engineering firms. The suit alleges systemic, defective design across nearly every major high-rise system. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, hit subscribe. We expose the engineering failures and systemic risks behind global mega projects every single week. The stories that luxury marketing teams desperately try to bury. Because this lawsuit was just the beginning. 2 months prior, the owners had already sued the developer for something entirely different, uncovering a shocking pattern of financial self-dealing. Visual, dark, cinematic tracking shot through an empty, ultra-modern luxury penthouse overlooking the Dubai Marina skyline at night, transitioning to close-up legal text and financial ledger animations. SFX heavy. AC synth. Cautionary cable news ticker. Metronome narrator. While the structural foundation of the tower was fracturing, a second, equally toxic crisis was unfolding in the accounting books. In February 2026, 2 months before hitting the contractors with the structural lawsuit, the Owners Association filed a blistering $5 million suit against the developer. The charge? Brazen. Systematic self-dealing with the owner's own maintenance funds. Here is the mechanics of the alleged scheme. During the construction and early handover phase, the developer legally controls the building's interim board. They manage the massive service budgets, hand out lucrative operations contracts, and set the baseline fees. According to the lawsuit, the developer used this window of absolute authority to turn the building into a private piggy bank. SFX. Cash Rider Digital Blip. The suit alleges the developer systematically steered critical service contracts at concierge, high security, valet, building management, and industrial cleaning to shell companies directly owned or controlled by the developer's principal family and their inner circle. The legal filings describe it as an immense corporate shell game, cycling millions of dollars of owner-funded association money back into the developer's own pockets. Look at the line items uncovered in the complaint. The association was forced to pay $70,000 in rent for an internal management office located inside a luxury unit owned by the developer's affiliate. The catch? There was already a completely free, designated management office built into the tower's infrastructure. A shadow concierge firm invoiced over $34,000 every single month with documentation so thin. The current board couldn't prove a single service was actually performed. A security vendor with zero high-rise experience was handed an $800,000 contract without a single competitive outside bid. FX, swipscound effect, but for the buyers. The ultimate wasn't just the stolen funds or the cracked concrete. It was the complete fabrication of the hyper-luxury amenities that justified their multi-million-dollar investments. The private marina yacht berths, unusable or completely unbuilt. The heavily marketed, exclusive beach club partnership with a legendary 5-star resort hotel on the Palm Jumeirah, a core selling point in every international sales brochure. When the newly elected association president finally contacted the luxury resort management to coordinate access for the residents, the resort executives didn't give him a logistics plan. They gave him a reality check. They explicitly called the developer's promised beach club arrangement a fairy tale. It didn't exist, it never existed, and no contract had ever been signed. The elite lifestyle sold to global investors was nothing more than high-end phantom marketing. Visual, grim aerial drone shot, moving slowly away from the towering skyscraper, fading into a wide view of the glittering Dubai skyline shrouded in a heavy sandstorm mist. SFX, deep, ominous reverb, the beat sloughs down to a steady, heavy thud narrator. The developer has fiercely pushed back against both lawsuits, issuing statements claiming the tower was built to premium international standards by highly regarded professionals. They've dismissed the structural and financial allegations as exaggerated, suggesting the new board is simply trying to deflect from its own current management decisions. The general contractor has stated it is reviewing the merits of the case and intends to defend its long regional track record vigorously. Those defenses will be tested in court. But this case forces a terrifying question back into the spotlight. Has the underlying incentive structure that creates these embedded structural defects actually changed? SFX. Distant rolling thunder construction defect litigation has become shockingly routine for brand new high-rises. In hyper-growth markets, buyers commit millions during pre-construction based entirely on glossy renderings, digital fly-throughs, and the gravitational pull of a famous brand name. The developer cashes in on the early pre-sales, collects the massive cash flow, and carefully structures the corporate entity to insulate the luxury brand partner from any actual building liability. By the time the buyers finally take control of the board, look beneath the surface, and discover the terrifying reality of what was actually built. The developer has already locked in their profits and moved on to the next mega project. The brand on the brochure is never the name on the lawsuit. DefX, music cues up to a sharp, dramatic climax. The people who paid for the ultimate supercar lifestyle are now the ones paying again just to keep their own building from falling apart. Seskers to follow this ongoing legal battle and expose the mechanics behind global mega project. Failures. Click the video on your screen right now for another deep